Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Alhamdulillah wa sallallahu ala nabil ummi. So I haven't been able to upload much content on the marriage channel here, and part of the reason is my mind is all over the place with regards to what topic I want to speak about, because there's so much to speak about. So I'm going to mention one topic today, and that is the topic of divorce. And I guess even for people that are not married, it will be something to think about and really consider the severity of it. So we know in general, in Islam, divorce is looked at in a quite serious manner. Our books refer to it as the abghadul halal, that the most disliked of the halal things. Meaning, in worst case scenarios, when a divorce has to happen, then it is acceptable that the divorce happens, but it is the most disliked things. And we know there's a hadith, quite a famous hadith actually, which speaks of the devil, shaitan, and his kingdom, that he sets his throne on a body of water and he seeks daily reports from the minor devils, shaitans that work under him. And he asks what evil things were they able to perpetrate onto humanity. So someone might mention he caused a crime, theft, murder, all these different evil sins that are mentioned, and the shaitan does not respond so happily. But when he hears someone say, "Oh, I caused a divorce," then shaitan actually gets extremely happy with that individual shaitan and hugs him and says, "You have done amazing." Because a divorce is really a disturbance to the social structure. Because a marriage is done with a promise of staying together. So what happens on both sides of the family, everybody has this thought made up that, oh, they're getting into this because both the families promise to be at their best, and they would have unity and love and kindness, compassion, forgiveness, and all these amazing qualities that we as humans possess. So both families are celebrating that. So when one of the couples or both the couples are not able to live up to that standard, then we're basically failing at a promise that we have made as a community when the two families get married. And again, marriage is a very special bond between two individuals, but it's also a bond between two families, two tribes, two countries, whatever you want to see the dynamics as. So it is a really big deal. Besides the romantic part of it, we mostly get lost in the love part of it, but it's a socially thinking about it. It's a really big contract that two families make. And that's why I keep mentioning families, so to hint that a marriage is not between two individuals. A lot is considered between the two families. So we have to think about that. So as I was mentioning, number one, a divorce in general is a very problematic thing. Number two, if there's kids involved, that makes it twice as bad, because the kids will be negatively affected regardless of how much the parents try to make sure the kids are not affected, but they will definitely be affected in a very tremendous manner, and it'll hurt their growth for sure. And on top of that, the last case would be when this happens in the West. So that becomes like a holy trinity of darkness. It was a divorce with kids involved, and number three is a divorce happening in the West. And why I'm emphasizing the West is because, generally speaking, there's a saying in the parenting world, they say a kid is brought up by a community. A child is brought up by a community, not just by two parents. So that structure is already broken in the West because kids are just brought up by parents but not by the community. The community structure is really broken. We keep living in big cities like Toronto of millions of people in the city, but the communities are not structured in a way where the kids are looked after. The looking after the kids becomes an individual responsibility for every parent. So the community is not there to help the kid grow up to be a fine child and a functioning part of the society. So that is already broken in the West in general when the marriage is stable. So now you add to the mix a divorce. So now the kid's life is completely shattered because now even the minimum structure that he had to grow up as a good person, which was the mother and the father, now that also is gone. And so that completely shatters the healthy mental, emotional growth of the child. It really bothers and disturbs the child. And many of us might be thinking, or some of us might be thinking, well, the marriage is not about the kids. It was about the two individuals, the husband and the wife. That is not the case. A marriage is about the husband and the wife as long as kids are not involved. As soon as kids are involved, then because the parents made the decision to bring a child into the world, now it is their responsibility to look after the well-being of the child, not of themselves only. There's an author by the name of Warren Farrell. Warren Farrell. And he is an author who has written on men's rights and women's rights. So he mentions that the marriage is about the couple until the child is born. Once the child is born, now the marriage is about the child now. The child's well-being has to be put forward first. So the kids have to be thought about a lot. So, and he has another book called The Boy Crisis. The Boy Crisis. So a lot is happening on the children growth and how negatively these things affected. And add to this mix the loneliness pandemic. In the West, there's a pandemic that we don't talk about. That is the pandemic of loneliness. So individuals are growing up without interacting with anyone because the society is structured so individually that people are not able to have bigger social circles. We might have more followers, more friends on social media. That literally means nothing in real life. So the loneliness pandemic is very strong. In fact, one of the Western countries, I'm forgetting the name, they actually have a whole new branch in the government, and they actually had a minister for this pandemic of loneliness because it's becoming so widespread that the whole country suffers at a high level of loneliness. So these are very important things to think about. So now if a divorce happens and there's kids in the mix, now they are socially broken, a bit from the mother's side, a bit from the father's side because of the sensitivities. So now the child is not even able to enjoy the little structure he had or she had in her life, whether it was with regards to going to the father's side family or the mother's side family. A divorce even hinders that. So you can imagine how much loneliness kids go through when a divorce happens in the West. So it is an extreme darkness upon darkness upon darkness when a divorce happens in the West with kids involved. So I would tell everyone that's listening is to take this very seriously and make divorce the absolute, like 1,000 last resort. So if you have 1,000 steps, divorce should be the last resort. If a person has to jump through 999 hurdles and loopholes and just try to be a better person, they should do that before they even consider a divorce. It shouldn't be the first option, oh, my ego is not being worshipped, so I'm out. That should not be the approach. we should not be basing all these big decisions based on our ego and our childishness and our immaturity, but take the lives of everybody involved very seriously. That way we can stand in front of the Lord on the Day of Judgment and be answerable to our lives. Otherwise, on an individual basis, we might be living a very selfish life. But once we have children and we continue to live like that, then that is the ultimate darkness. Because if we think of the bigger structures, whether it comes to taking care of people in the society, the sick ones, the old ones, the poor people, that's already an issue there. We're not reaching out to much people. So now when it comes to our own families and we're not able to reach out and take care of the individuals in our smaller circles, that would just hint towards the decay in our society. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for us to understand the sensitivities, and may Allah make it easy for us to live lives that are to His pleasure and to the betterment of our families.